It's a foggy, chilly morning out here in Northern California. We actually got some rain yesterday, so the ground is wet, but it's not too wet to do tractor work. And this is a good thing because today is the day that I need to plant my hayfield. That's what we're doing today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. Of course, this time of year, nothing can really happen until I get the cows fed. So we're gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll get over to the hayfield. You guys ready for breakfast? All right, well, my approval rating has gone up over here, so I think we can go get to work. We're out here at the hayfield, and as you guys can see, this ground is prepped and ready to plant. Now, normally I film that process, but this year things were so crazy that I ended up doing pretty much all of the groundwork here at night. And there's really nothing to film when you're driving tractor at night, because all you would see is lights and a cloud of dust, and you really wouldn't be able to see what was going on. So if you're interested in those videos, they do exist, but they're from last year, not from this year. Now, because my tractor is not equipped with GPS, the first thing that I have to do out here before I can get started is set out my bag rows. Now, bag rows were probably really commonplace back before GPS, and basically what they are is I'll do a row of bags going this way across the field, each bag being 30 feet apart from the next. And then I'll do another row of bags down there at the other end of the field with each bag being 30 feet apart. What that enables me to do is that when I'm driving the tractor going long ways up and down the field, I can line up those two bags, and that will ensure that I make a straight pass each time, and also that my passes are 30 feet apart. My spreader is set up to make a 30-foot swath, so that's why this number is important. So let me get these bags set up, and if this isn't making sense, then maybe once you see it, it will. Granted, this is not a very high-tech way of doing things. In fact, I'm not even measuring between the bags. I just take 10 steps, and I figure as long as I'm not overthinking how I'm walking, that the bags actually space out pretty darn even. So you can kind of see now, or you may not be able to see it on this camera. So as long as while I'm driving, I keep those 3 bags in line, I can pretty well assume that my pass is going to be pretty straight. I was a little worried that it might rain too much yesterday. Of course, it's out of my hands. There's not much I can do about it. But as it turns out, things actually look really nice out here. We still did have some clods after working the ground, but now that the clods have been rained on and they're soft, after I spread the seed out and come back with the harrow and the ring roller, or cultipacker as some people call it, it should smash all these clods. So if you look, like this big guy here is wet on this side where the rain got him, but actually still pretty dry over here. So we're definitely not too wet to go. There might be a little bit of dirt sticking to the ring roller, but it shouldn't be too bad. Now that the bags are all set out, there's nothing left to do but go get the tractor, hook up the spreader, fill it up with fertilizer, and get going. All right, well, it appears that the battery on this tender is, well, not dead, but it barely has enough power to turn that motor over. And I've been cranking on it for a little while, more than what you saw on camera. And this engine just does not want to start. So I don't know what the deal is. It's getting fuel. Of course, the place that supplies this stuff is closed today. So I guess it is up to me to figure out what's wrong with this thing, and hopefully I can get it running, because there's really no other way to get the fertilizer out of this thing, and I need it, and I need it today. So all right, let's see what we can do. So I've been tinkering around with this thing for a little bit, and I noticed a couple things. Number one, the gas cap has a big crack in it, and like I mentioned before, it did rain yesterday, so I'm thinking probably maybe some water got in the tank. So I took off the fuel line here at the petcock, and when I just twist that open and let the gas flow out, it looks really cloudy and not really what gas should look like. So I'm hoping that if I just drain the gas and put some fresh in, that it'll be okay. I'll probably have to drain the carburetor as well, but hopefully that's all it is. And then I'm going to need to get some jumper cables, because the battery is pretty much gone on this. There's a little bit left, so we might get lucky and it might fire, but that assumes that this is even the problem. But I'm going to drain this gas into a clear water bottle so I can get a better look at it, and I'll show you guys. Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting, and I hope that you'll be able to see this. But notice on this water bottle, at the bottom, there is a layer, which would suggest that there is water in there, because gas and water don't mix, and you can clearly see how there are two different liquids in there. I think we're getting warm. I think we're figuring out what the problem might be. I've got access to the carburetor, kind of. It's really in a bad spot down there, but usually on these Honda motors, or actually this is a Briggs & Stratton, but generally any of these smaller motors, the carburetors will have a little drain screw on the bottom. So I just got to find that, and hopefully I have a wrench with me that will fit. I might have to run back to the shop and get the right one, but let's just see what we got here. All right, so the shadows kind of screw things up, but I think this right here is a drain bolt. We're gonna try it. So in the midst of all this bad luck, I actually had a stroke of very good luck. I just so happened to have this 12mm wrench in my truck, and I even remember thinking the other day when I saw it that I need to put that back in the toolbox and get it out of the truck. Well, obviously I didn't. I left it in there, and lo and behold, this drain bolt, if it is in fact a drain bolt, is a 12mm. Holy smokes, that's no joke. Oh, good. Well, it was a drain. Now the problem is I dropped it. Okay, I finally fished this little drain bolt out of the engine. That was such a dumb mistake, but those things happen. Anyway, I've got most of the gas drained out of here, and it kind of dawned on me that in this first bottle, you could see how all the water settled to the bottom. So one could safely assume that all the water in the tank also settled to the bottom. So when I'm starting to get clean gas out of the line here, I think I can pretty safely assume that all of the water that's in the tank drained. Probably most of it went into the carburetor when I first got started. So now that that's all out of there, I'm going to put everything back together, and we'll turn the key and see if she fires up. Cross your fingers, knock on wood, all that good stuff. All right, see what happens. well, I guess that's gonna be problem solved. That motor is running good now. We got our fertilizer loaded up, so now I guess we can get to work. Fertilizer application is finished now. It actually came out a little bit light, so I had to end up doubling up on the west side of the field over there. The yield over there is always kind of low because it's really sandy, so I'm hoping that maybe the double application of fertilizer might help it a little bit this year. We'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. So now that the spreader is empty of fertilizer, it's time to fill it up with seed. I'll actually be planting 2 different crops this year, which is sort of abnormal for me. Usually I just plant all the same thing. But this year I wanted to plant this smaller half of the field into beardless wheat. And the reason for that is that I can use different chemicals if it's just straight beardless wheat. And more specifically, I can use a chemical that will kill the foxtail that has sort of become a problem out there. The other half of the field is going to be planted in the 3-way forage mix, and that consists of beardless wheat, beardless barley, and oats. And because it's a little bit easier to get to on this trailer, I think we're going to start with planting just the straight beardless wheat. And of course, I'm going to want to remember that I need to change the gate setting on this spreader because the fertilizer comes out at a much higher rate than the seed does. So we need to make a couple, well, really just one adjustment to this gate. And I'm going to do that right now before I forget. That doesn't look like it's moved in a while. Just gotta love crescent wrenches. So as we're rolling along through the field, this is actually a ground-driven implement, and the way it works is this drag chain here on the bottom is constantly dragging material out the back where it falls down and hits these flippers. So the way that we can control the rate is just by opening and closing that gate like we just did. It's really pretty simple. As you can see, the beardless wheat seed looks exactly like normal wheat, and I mean, essentially it is. It's just when the plants mature, it doesn't have that beard on it. The reason that this is important in livestock feed is that those little hairs or beards, if you will, make the feed less palatable and less desirable for the animals to eat. So now we've got all the beardless wheat loaded in the trailer, and I can't help but think how funny it is that this little pile of seed here is going to feed my cows next year for 5 or 6 months, but it will. So now that we've got the spreader loaded up, let's get back out in the field and get it spread. I hope you can hear me over the tractor. We're getting low on daylight now. I've still got another load of seed to put out that's probably not going to get filmed because I think I'm going to run out of light. So we're going to get that spread out, and then tomorrow I'm going to come out here with the harrow and the ring roller and get this seed covered up. Good morning. It is the next day. We got all of the seed put out last night. I think I finished up at about 9 o'clock, so it wasn't too bad. I wasn't out here as late as I have been in the past. Anyway, so today we've got all day to cover this seed, so hopefully we don't have any problems. But let's go ahead and get the tractor unloaded, get the harrow and the roller hooked up, and get started. This is the first piece of the puzzle for my setup for covering seed, and this is what I call a spring tooth harrow. The way that this works is as I drag it across the ground, those tines are going to dig in about 2 to 3 inches. It's really not a precision thing, but that's kind of what we shoot for. And what that will do is that will fluff up the ground, kick up the ground, and create little grooves for the seed to fall into, ideally. And if the seed doesn't fall into those grooves, then the idea is that the ground that gets kicked up will cover the seed. So one way or another, you shouldn't be left with any seeds sitting on top of the ground. I'm sure it happens, but enough of it gets covered that we will get something to germinate here. After the harrow runs through the ground though, it leaves things pretty cloddy and kind of rough. So the next part of the equation here is the ring roller, or cultipacker as some people call it. We're gonna go hook that up now. Alright guys, well that is going to wrap it up out here at the hayfield. We've got all the seed covered, and according to the weather forecast, which is never known to be wrong, it's supposed to rain next week. So that should sprout this hay and get it moving in the right direction. Thanks for hanging out with me today guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.